The Living Zen-podcast is a gift from the Victoria Zen Centre. If you enjoy it, please forget about making a donation. Instead, just share it with a friend that you think will enjoy it as much as you did. You may also consider purchasing the Living Zen-podcast app, which is available for iPod, iPhone, and Android. If you happen to visit or reside in Victoria, British Columbia, I'd like to invite you to attend the Tuesday evening Zen open house that takes place every week at the University of Victoria's Interfaith Chapel. This event is co-sponsored by UVic Multifaith Services and the Victoria Zen Centre. For more information, please visit our website at zenwest.ca. As we practice, as we engage in this practice of Zen meditation, and our awareness develops, we become able to see more and more clearly how we go about interacting, making relationship with people, with objects, with the world around us. What starts to become more and more clear are the habits, the way that we do these things, the way that we make these relationships, the way that we engage with objects and with people, with environments in a very habitual way. We can become more and more sensitive to how, when we enter into a situation, regardless of what we think about it beforehand, regardless of how we plan or say to ourselves, this is how I'm going to respond, or this is what I'm going to do today, or this is the schedule that I'm going to keep today. Regardless of what we lay out in a conceptual way, when the situation meets us, when that person walks in the room, when we get that object in our hand, we find that all the planning goes out the window, and we just kind of follow the routine. We do things the way that we've always done it. And this observation of this clarity, awareness, starts to penetrate more and more aspects of our lives. So these habits we can start to see. We start to see all over the place, whether it's in how and what we're eating, or who and what we're chasing around or trying to make relationship with, how we go about engaging in our work or study, what we call bad habits, unhealthy habits that we have, where we say, oh, I won't do that this time. But when we find ourselves in contact with that situation, in the same situation, we fall down, the plan falls apart, and we just follow the routine. And what happens at this point, if we're practicing, especially if we're at the beginning of practice, but I think it's something that happens throughout a person's practice. Maybe you just become more familiar with the whole unfolding pattern, is that first develops awareness. As we practice, we might come to practice hoping to change something, hoping to engage in this practice so that we can transform our lives. And this can be anything from wanting to quit smoking, to wanting to stop worrying about things, to wanting to stop being so distracted. But what we don't realize, or what we don't think about, is that those activities are not spontaneous. They don't just arise of their own accord without causes and conditions. Most of these things that we have problems with, most of these things that create unpleasant, harmful, uncomfortable, or for lack of a better word, that cause suffering in our lives, they're not things that just happen all of a sudden. They are ways of engaging, ways of making relationship. There are habits that have causes and conditions that we have voluntarily and willingly engaged in over and over and over again until they cease to be conscious choices and become a path of least resistance. They become habit. And as they become habit, as they become what's normal or what's familiar, they become invisible. And they continue to be invisible until the point where they start to become uncomfortable. So this habit we have of not being able to stop myself thinking starts off as just a seed of thinking about things in my downtime. Yeah. What happens in practice is that we, as we engage in this practice of being present with all that is arising in this moment, then difficult things we become aware of because they're arising in the moment and we are present with them. Difficult thoughts, difficult desires, uncomfortable feelings both physically, mentally, and emotionally, we become aware of them. And as we practice more and more being present in each moment of our lives as we go through our days, we begin to become more and more aware of how frequently these thoughts or feelings or physical sensations arise. And at first, we started to become aware that there was something going on, that there was something that was causing us difficulty. But we really think that the only time it's causing us difficulty is when we notice it. But what we find is that when we turn and face our lives, we begin to see it in more and more places. We begin to see that throughout the day, we're engaging in these habits. We're engaging in this pattern which causes us difficulty. And when we come to this point, we can often feel really frustrated. We can feel like, oh God, like I was having this problem of thinking too much, and I started meditation to help that, and it seemed like at first it was calming things down, but now I notice that I'm thinking about stuff all the time, and instead of getting better, it seems to be getting worse. Instead of just having a problem once in a while with thinking all the time, I can see that I'm having a problem with thinking about things all the time. And we become frustrated. But what's happening is that we are becoming aware. We're becoming more and more aware from moment to moment of what we're doing, how we're going about living our lives. We begin to see just how bad the problem really is, or just how complex this habit really is. We can sometimes become aware through practice, through meditation, of how these habits arose in the first place, how these things began, how we seek them, how we engage in them to distract us from what's uncomfortable or unpleasant that's unfolding in our lives. And what can happen as we practice is that we become very frustrated. We think, gosh, this meditation isn't doing anything for me. I thought that this was supposed to be a practice where I could change, where I could transform. But seeing things isn't enough. Becoming aware of habits, or the origins of habits, or the frequency of habits, or the depths, persistence of habits, isn't enough for us to change. As we continue to practice, one of the virtues, or one of the paramitas, it's called in Sanskrit, or that which reaches the other shore, I guess. One way I like to look at these is things that will help you carry it through. One of them is patience. One of the things that I notice most about people who engage in practice is that they underestimate the power of habit. They underestimate the time and energy and determination with which we have practiced these things from the very moment that we were born. We underestimate how many times in a day our thoughts travel around in those familiar circles. How many times in a week we engage in those practices without being aware of them at all. The first step in practice is to awaken, is to bring about the awareness with which you can investigate the activity of your life, with which you can see without dozing off, without taking breaks, without pausing from thought moment to thought moment, each activity of your day. You can witness for yourself how many times we go around and around and around. One of the results of this for me is to develop a healthy respect for any difficulty, any challenge, or any habit pattern that causes suffering in my own life. When I notice something that causes a problem, and I pay attention to it and I observe it, it becomes very quickly apparent how much time and energy that I myself have put into creating this experience in my life. I won't talk about transforming it. I won't talk about changing it until my awareness of that thing becomes so sharp, so pointed, so tuned in to every nuance, every shape of it as it appears in relationships and work and every environment, that I can't bear it anymore. In classical Buddhist texts, the Buddha used the term revulsion. Revulsion as a necessary component for transformation. The absolute, you can no longer tolerate this. You can no longer stand by and watch yourself engage in these activities and what comes out of those activities anymore. You have to change. And it's only through constantly sharpening, constantly deepening, constantly pointing your awareness from moment to moment, right back, shining that light on each and every moment of your thought, each and every moment of your feelings, each and every moment of your physical activities. Not a sharp intellectual light, but like the light of the sun that casts an even light across everything. Not a spotlight or a flashlight. When we have this experience, when we apply our awareness so assiduously to our lives that we can no longer continue going the way that we have, there's a very powerful moment. Because what we realize is that part of the reason that we continue to do things the way that we do is because we don't really know another way to do them. The reason that we're so deeply entrenched in continuing to do things the way that we have always done them is because the alternative is to step off into the unknown. The alternative is to take something which is alive, which is the way that we've always done it, as ugly and as unwieldy and as harmful as it might be, and to kill it and to put it in its place an unknown. This is terrifying to most of us. And this, in order to make this change, in order to step into this world of experimentation, into this world of, I don't know how to do this, but I know that I can no longer continue to do it the way that I have, requires this exhaustive, committed, determined willingness to sit and honestly and unabashedly observe what is embarrassing, what is aggravating, what is depressing and upsetting about the way that we ourselves go about living our lives. It sounds horrible. I don't know why anyone does this, but what we find is that when we come to this point, when we come to the point of being willing to try something, to be willing to try indeed anything other than what we are already doing, there is a fantastic birth. Because that willingness, that courage, that determination that arises to say anything but that, to say, let's try something new. Let's do it a different way. Let's see what happens when I do it this way. Each time that we find this, each time that we find ourselves at the precipice, willing to jump off, it makes it easier every other time. Each time that we engage in this practice of turning our awareness on ourselves, on our own lives, on our own world, on our own interactions and relationships, each time that we find a habit that we are fixated to, that we're stuck on, that we can't let go of, each time that we follow this back and feel that frustration, we are offered this opportunity to breathe new life into this activity that's unfolding in front of us. We have this opportunity to take something that is solid, that we've made into a rigid, fixed block. I am this. This is what I like. This is what I do. I don't like that person. I don't like this kind of thing. We have this opportunity to soften it, to allow it to melt, or if you like, to break it apart and to allow something which is fluid, which is flexible, which transforms readily to meet, to engage, to make relationship with whatever arises in front of it. We find that much less frequently are we at loggerheads. More often, we're able to adapt. More often, we're able to let go of what we were absolutely determined to get pushed through and find a different way to do it. We're able to reduce conflict, diminish suffering within our own lives and in the lives of others. And in a nutshell, I find, this process allows us to enjoy our lives. Not in the sense of we get to go water skiing more or anything like this, but in the sense that we're able to just sit. We're able to just be. We're able to just walk in our shoes down the street and experience our lives as they are and be happy. If we're going to practice, I'm not so interested in these sky-shattering bolt of enlightenment kind of experiences. Just this simple experience of finding yourselves happy, present, at home in the activity of your life as it unfolds in front of you. I don't think I can ask for anything more than that. Thanks for listening to the Living Zen podcast. If you follow Living Zen through iTunes, I would very much appreciate it if you would take a moment to let me know what you think about it by rating or reviewing the podcast, so that new listeners can also hear what you have to say. Thank you for your time and for your support.